setting fire to the stoner stereotype, sparking up candid conversations with cannabis researchers, entrepreneurs, and advocates. Educator, author, and advocate Dr. Mitch Earleywine is here to tackle the burning issues. CannabisRadio.com presents a no-holds-barred platform that seeks to redefine and revolutionize the entire scope of the cannabis culture while opening the door for more to join the cannabis crusade. Please welcome the host of Burning Issues, Dr. Mitch Earleywine.
I'm Dr. Mitch Earleywine. Thanks for joining me on Burning Issues. As many of you know, I'm professor of psychology at the University of Albany, author of the book Understanding Marijuana, published by Oxford University Press, chair of the executive board at the National Organization for the Reform of Marijuana Laws, and I pen the High Times column Ask Dr. Mitch. I'm here to clear up the myths about cannabis and burn them away with science. Today we'll have a discussion about vaporizers with Firefly executives Mark Williams and Sasha Robinson. Welcome to the show, gentlemen.
Thanks so much, Dr. Earleywine. It's a pleasure to join you.
I published some of the first data on vaporizers and respiratory symptoms, and I really want to thank you guys for your hard work. I feel super vindicated every time I see your product and really get a kick out of it. It's a little ironic that we're actually on a show called Burning Issues, since the Firefly doesn't really burn anything, does it?
No, it doesn't. It is. We took great pains to make sure it's digitally governed to not exceed 400 Fahrenheit, because in addition to not wanting to burn, we also don't want people to be exposed to pre-combustion byproducts, which can also be things to avoid.
So it's interesting because these are respiratory irritants, and I feel like lung function is one of the big issues that the prohibitionists often bring up. So I'm super glad to have this technology. Can you kind of tell me about your impressions of vaporizers before you guys got on board in the business?
My first impression of a vaporizer was one that I know you're quite familiar with because you did the original testing of it, the Volcano Vaporizer. And I was exposed to that, and it really opened my eyes because I first of all, I personally like the effects a lot better than smoking. I liked the feeling that there was a lot less body load, and I saw right away that it was the future of high-speed delivery of cannabis, among other things. So what we didn't like was the product experience itself. And without getting into that too much, we just didn't think it was a mass market type of product. We thought it was too much of a commitment in terms of size, space, and the lifestyle connotations that it suggests. So we thought to ourselves, hey, let's design something that we would want in our lives, something that fits our use model and patterns of life and those of the folks that we know around us. So we started a journey that 4.5 years ago, or actually about 5 years ago, that's led us here to this day.
So Sasha, do you remember your first vaporizer experiences and have any impressions?
Absolutely. I mean, I think the early ones that we were looking at when we first started thinking about the company and thinking about this area, the Volcano, as Mark mentions, there was also the Vapir. That's the one that actually really sticks out for me. The Vapir was kind of a, maybe foot tall sort of black plastic, I don't know, just really very aggressive looking tool that didn't actually function that well, but did the job. And it was, you plugged it in, you had to keep it kind of very near the outlet. And it was really just something where I took one look at it and I was like, wow, this can be so much better. We can do something here. There's really an opportunity to provide people something that they actually want to use rather than something like this that they're getting that's really kind of a glorified piece of lab equipment. And I tried some of the early sort of like Vapor Brothers boxes as well. Which are really kind of more like almost like a soldering iron. They've got a dial on it, and you kind of find the right temperature, but you're never really quite sure if you've got it right. So there's a lot of things that most people when they're approaching this, they just want the experience. They don't really want to have to fiddle with it. They don't want to sort of keep a big piece of equipment out on the table. All of those things that we were looking at in our lives, we're like, well, okay, I want something that's better than this. I want something that's especially portable, something that's discreet, something that I'm not afraid to have out on my coffee table, or something like that just looks like it fits more in my lifestyle.
That's super. Is there something magic about this 400 degree temperature?
I wouldn't quite call it magic, but I would say that we chose it as a balance point to be high enough that you would be very likely to vaporize all the constituent parts of the materials that you would choose to vaporize. That you could get all the active ingredients and flavors without getting into the pre-combustion zone of about 415 degrees, 410, 415, 420 degrees is where pre-combustion, it's been well studied in tobacco, for instance, pre-combustion starts to happen then, and you can have very unpleasant, even though you're not producing little hot coals or burning embers, you are producing chemicals that are essentially cancerous. And that we don't have any data on that applying to cannabis, but we know it to be true for tobacco. So we never want to offer any. We never wanted to offer any product to our users that could introduce them to anything that could potentially harm them. So we set it at 400 as a conservative ceiling to make sure that we basically never endangered our users' health. As best we can understand it at the time.
It's great, actually, because it does seem like there are markedly fewer respiratory irritants under these circumstances, and yet you guys have a thickness to the vapor that I feel like other companies don't have. Did you want to make that kind of a target? Was that one of your goals?
I'd say that yes. So absolutely, yes, it was, Mitch. It was one of our goals, and improving it every chance we get remains one of our goals and top priorities. But it was less about, I'd say, even the thickness of the vapor, and more about wanting to offer the whole plant. That's what was actually really interesting to us, because we don't view plants as being single-dimensional things. We view them as having many, many, many constituents, all of which have an interplay with each other. So just getting thick vapor is not enough. We wanted vapor that basically was extracting or characteristic of the whole plant. So, for instance, contains the terpenes that vaporize down around 200 Fahrenheit. Contains things like CBD, which is in the lower 300s Fahrenheit. And then contains other active ingredients that we all know about that are in the upper 300s. But given that there are, you know this better than me, but at last count, was it 85 identified cannabinoids?
Indeed.
None of those, as it turns out, has the exact same vaporization point, because it turns out that a lot of those molecules have different atomic weights, i.e., heavier molecules tend to vaporize at higher temperatures because they weigh more. Lighter molecules tend to vaporize at lower temperatures because they weigh less. So we've always been interested in developing a technology, and we've done that with the Firefly, that allows you to enjoy the whole plant, whether or not it's got flavors that vaporize at 200 Fahrenheit or active ingredients that vaporize at around 400 Fahrenheit. And that's really what we're in pursuit of.
I realize the whole plant experience is an incredible goal. You guys must have started out with the standards like butane. Can you kind of tell me about how the heating elements developed?
We started with thinking butane was really the right vehicle because it's super energy dense. And actually, going back to some of the earlier vaporizer experiences, there was a vaporizer out at that time called the Iolite, which was a butane-powered vaporizer that was built by a company that does, butane soldering torches. And again, being able to produce the heat is actually a really important aspect. And at that point, battery technology has changed a lot since then, for sure. And at that point, we didn't think that batteries had enough energy density to really deliver the kind of experience that we wanted. And then we actually just started looking at it. We started going into butane. And what we realized was actually the butanes are very, very hard to control. And one of the things we've realized as well is that actually heating is only one of the aspects of creating a great vaporizer, especially a portable experience. Because you actually have to keep the device cool. You're trying to create a system in your hand that goes up to 400 degrees, and yet you can still hold it. So you need to be able to actually, efficiently use that energy that you're creating and actually focus it, and then control it. Actually, and in our case, control it very, very at a very, very detailed level, so we can provide, as Mark was saying, that full spectrum of flavor. Because as Mark was saying, actually, it's not just the 400. I mean, there's a lot of vaporizers out there that are kind of more the oven style, where you create an oven, you create a little metal bowl that you heat up to a set temperature. And the challenge is those more volatile especially the flavor compounds, actually will decompose under higher temperatures. So we've wanted a system that was so responsive that on every single inhale, you're getting a full spectrum of temperature. So the Firefly, and the way we designed our heating coil, was closer to actually, it just had never really existed before. So even the butane systems didn't approach it at all. But when we got into the electric, we realized that with electric, we could actually have such fine-grained control over the temperature if we actually went beyond the power level that most other vaporizers were limited to at that time, which was about 4 watts. And actually, most vaporizers, especially the oven-style ones, are about 4 watts right now. And they take
actually,
about
Sasha, can we get to your 50 watts after a word from our sponsors?
Absolutely.
I sure appreciate it. It's Dr. Mitch Earleywine at Burning Issues, and we're talking to Firefly executives Mark Williams and Sasha Robinson. We'll have more about the whole plant experience after these messages.
More Burning Issues coming up after we blaze through these words from our sponsors.
Your connection to quality cannabis insurance services is spelled Kaercher. That's Karcher Insurance. We have worked with ventures like Cannabis for over 60 years. We're proud to represent over 50 companies with tailor-made cannabis plans for owners just like you to insure your product, your plants, and your pursuits. Kaercher spells out their full-service insurance services ranging from commercial to bonds, to personal, from life to health, and more. Contact the team at CarcherInsurance.com and let our experience work for you. That's Kaercher Insurance.com.
Contact Karen and the team at Karcher Insurance at 1-844-421-3560. That's 844-421-3560. Chronicling the latest cannabis industry news and headlines.
Well, with 4 states with tax and regulate and the District of Columbia.
The state of cannabis.
Oh my God, it's refreshing. We have people that generally wouldn't speak on behalf of cannabis for fear of retribution, fear of losing your practices, fear of many of those things, and find ourselves in a place that we finally can.
Bringing you fact-based news and views and keeping listeners on the pulse of what's happening in the industry today. The state of cannabis. On demand anytime, only on CannabisRadio.com.
Growing green to generate more green.
Hello to all you happy herbalizers, smiling trippy hippies, and everyone who believes in freedom and tolerance. This is The Grow Show, and I'm Kyle Cushman.
From food to fuel, from remedy to resource.
Welcome my guest, Ed Rosenthal, the guru of ganja. Let me ask you, right now I hear your lighter clicking. Are you smoking indoor or are you smoking sun-grown?
What am I smoking? I'm smoking concentrate.
Way to get out of the answer there. So you're truly like the king, right? You just clap your hands and somebody brings you a bowl and you're all set, right?
I wish that were the case.
The Grow Show with Kyle Cushman, only on CannabisRadio.com.
Time to fan the fire on some more burning issues, only on CannabisRadio.com.
All right, it's Dr. Mitch Earleywine with Burning Issues, and we're back with Mark Williams and Sasha Robinson from Firefly Vaporizers. And Sasha was elaborating on the power and the whole plant experience in the Firefly Vaporizer.
Yes. We were just talking about actually the development of the Firefly and kind of our design goals as well. And really for us, we really wanted to provide what we thought was the highest quality of vapor that you could get from a portable. And to do that, we really created a vaporizer that was much higher power than anything that had been out on the market before. And even today, almost every vaporizer that's out on the market is about 4 watts, and we run at 50 watts. And what that does is that allows us to do instant heating. So we heat up our coil over about 2 seconds. The coil goes from room temperature to about 1800 degrees. But because it's a pure convection vaporizer, we're actually only heating the air, and that 1800 degrees never touches the material itself. So we're actually pulling air that starts out at room temperature and then goes to a digitally controlled maximum temperature of 400 in every single inhale. So as we were discussing earlier, the more volatile components of the plant material actually vaporize at lower temperatures than some of the active ingredients.
So just real quick, Sasha, because some of us don't remember Ohm's law, what would it mean to say, 50 watts compared to 4 watts?
Yeah, so it's 10 times the actual instantaneous power. So that means that we can, for instance, heat up in 5 seconds, whereas other vaporizers take about a minute to 2 minutes.
Now that's something I can understand, heating up in 5 seconds.
And actually, even that's, we actually heat up, the coil itself heats up in about 1 second to 2 seconds. And then there's the air itself that needs to be heated. So, it's really taking that power and focusing it. And, you can see with a light bulb, that there are dim lights and there are bright lights. And for us, we wanted to deliver a super, super rich vapor in response for whenever the user was actually desiring it. Rather than having to wait for the device, we wanted the device to be ready for you whenever you were ready.
I know that's been one of the big complaints of folks on other things is that heat up time. I'm curious, though, does this really take a beating on your battery?
It does push the batteries. I mean, and that was one of the initial aspects for us that was a real big challenge, was to find, as a small company, to find a battery manufacturer that would work with us, because we were the only company, and we still are the only company that's actually pushing custom batteries, because we really wanted to push the power envelope. We think actually delivering a much higher power experience gives the user what they really want, which is a more instantaneous experience. And that's actually really important to us. And so, yeah, we've been working with that and actually really pushing the technology in batteries. And we actually, just recently, as of September, got even a whole new battery manufacturer online that's a much higher quality that we're much more excited about. And what really that speaks to as well is that we designed our product to have a replaceable battery. So the replaceable battery allows us to actually replace that component with better technology as we can bring that to market. So
I wanted to emphasize that sounds super eco-friendly too.
Yes, because then you're not actually capturing this toxic thing inside plastic or metal that can't be recycled. So for us, it was really important as well to be able to recycle the batteries because they are consumables. Lithium batteries right now just have a very limited lifetime. It's just a basic aspect of the chemistry. So we really wanted that part to actually be something that could be changed out by the users, because we want this product to actually be something that people use for years. We really do. And to do that, you actually need to be able to replace the battery. And almost all the other vaporizers that have captured batteries, people will, after a year, and sometimes even less of use, they will notice significant, up to 50% degraded lifetime in that battery. And that's just what happens when you're pushing the battery. So for us, it was very important to have a replaceable one so that as we really see new technologies and as users continue to use it, that they can actually just slip in a new one and it will actually improve their experience without having to throw away their whole device.
I got to emphasize, too, having two of them makes for a completely seamless experience.
It does, Mitch. I agreed. In fact, our default package on our website, www.thefirefly.com, we basically sell the Firefly on our website with the battery and an extra battery and an external charger, because essentially that enables the use model of whenever your battery is out of juice, no problem. It takes literally 2 seconds to swap in a new battery that you've got, and then put that old battery in the external charger. It'll charge up in under 45 minutes, which is best in class in this space by a long shot. And we found that charging in 45 minutes is plenty fast enough to outpace how fast you drain the other battery. So the double battery, I'm really glad you brought that up, and thanks for doing so. The double battery model is the way to go. Once you go that way, you never go back for sure.
I definitely second that. The clincher here, too, is these are beautiful, you guys. The machine itself is sleek and gorgeous. Can you tell me about some of the decisions that went into that?
Well, thank you for the compliment. We really appreciate it. As Sasha said before, we wanted to make something that was not a throwaway product. We don't believe in that philosophically. We wanted to make something that people would be happy to have out on their coffee table. And part of that is it's really an expression of our cultural values that we don't think there's anything to be ashamed of in vaporizing what you want to vaporize. We come from the perspective of, hey, we're all adults. Let's choose what we want to do or not, and that's our own personal choice and responsibility. And it's okay to have something that's in your life out on your coffee table if someone comes by, and you can be proud that you're making a good choice. That you're prioritizing a better way to enjoy your plant materials than burning.
I really think this does send a great message that, hey, fire is for the cavemen. We're onto something new here.
Thanks. It's interesting. We definitely wanted the reason we called it the Firefly, naturally you bring up fire, is that we wanted people to have an analogous experience, a touch point that would be familiar and relatable. So we took a lot of effort to make it so that the Firefly, when you actually press the heating button, you can see the light of the heating element through the glass bowl. It actually glows like a firefly or like a pipe, which is essentially what it was replacing. So it was very important for us to be able to tap into that knowingness and that emotional connection with methods that people previously used, without them having to actually burn anything anymore.
Oh, it's got the warm glow of the campsite still there. I really think it's wonderful. Is there a way that I know listeners are going to want to get in touch with you guys, or at least see the range of the products and the website itself? Can you give us all those details?
Yes, thanks for asking. Folks who are interested in more information on the Firefly can go to our website, which is www.thefirefly.com. That's thefirefly.com. And you can also go to our Facebook page, search for Firefly Vaporizer, and you'll see a bunch of updates that we are posting there with specials, deals, new information, etc. So feel free to contact us. And if you want to contact us directly, our email contact information is on our website, and we welcome all inquiries, commentary, or engagement.
So I just wanted to emphasize that the data really are on your side here. My lab has published an experiment basically giving folks a vaporizer for a month and showing decreased respiratory irritation, increases in the amount of air they can actually blow out of their lungs in a second, and increase in that total lung volume, the exact amount of air your lungs can hold. And we saw that in literally just a month. I feel like a lot of folks who are using cannabis and are coughing or experiencing wheezing or shortness of breath, oftentimes they don't associate it with the cannabis. And I just really want to thank you guys for making these products available. It's really super. This is Mitch Earleywine, and I'm super grateful to Firefly executives Mark Williams and Sasha Robinson. Thanks so much for being on the show, you guys.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you so much for having us.
And thanks for all of your work as well. You've done really incredible work that has pushed this whole space forward.
It's really been a pleasure, and I'm going to take a short break now, and I'll be back with Persuading Prohibitionists.
More burning issues coming up after we blaze through these words from our sponsors.
Great websites today need expert web design and development and need to be e-commerce ready and mobile friendly. But building a marketable and profitable website can be an uphill climb. Ready to make your new website or replace your existing website? Think Orange as the new way to get in the black. Orange Hill Development works with Fortune 500 companies and offer the same top quality development service at a fraction of what other providers charge. Brands like Absolute, Carlsberg, and Nestea trust Orange Hill Development. Find out why you should trust your website with Orange Hill. Contact Orange Hill for a consultation today at orangehilldevelopment.com.
Ignite the conversation on some trending topics along the Cannabis Radio social media network. Join our crew of thousands on our Cannabis Radio page on Facebook or at Canna Radio, CANNA Radio on Twitter. Plus, look for our Facebook and Google Plus pages for all of our original programs and connect with Dr. Dina, Kyle Cushman, Dr. Mitch Earleywine, Nurse Heather, Doc Rob, the hosts of Ganjapreneur, and more. Connect with the growing Cannabis Radio social crusade at Canna Radio on Twitter or search for Cannabis Radio on Facebook, Google Plus, and Instagram and grow with us.
Doc Rob, the concierge for better living.
Cannabis is just one of the many great plants that we have on this planet called Earth that we can use consciously and intelligently to improve our well-being.
Take a real, raw, inside look at healthier living while sharing great ideas and improvements for a better quality of life.
Learning to live and live well is a lifelong process. This is a journey. You could be 80 years old or 8 years old. You can still learn something that's going to make tomorrow a little bit healthier, a little bit easier, a little bit happier, a little bit better.
The concierge for better living with Doc Rob. Only on CannabisRadio.com.
Time to fan the fire on some more burning issues. Only on CannabisRadio.com.
Hey, it's Dr. Mitch Earleywine. Thanks again for joining me on Burning Issues. This is a little segment I'd like to call Persuasion Points, where we're going to focus on encouraging compassion and justice and learn a few tricks from the persuasion research. Today, I'd really like to focus on marijuana arrests. Are they worth it? Everybody knows that marijuana is illegal, but few people think about marijuana arrests. Each year we have around 750,000 or so, and that's really more than one a minute. Over 85% of those are for simple possession. Not busting a giant cartel, not even dealing, just simple possession, day after day and year after year. Is this how we want law enforcement officers spending their time? Well, let's think about it. Every marijuana arrest requires law enforcement time. It takes many a minute to drag people down to the police station, get them fingerprinted, and handle their paperwork. Any minute that a police officer spends on these tasks is time away from preventing violent crimes like rape or murder. In fact, my friend Ted Shepard has relevant data on this. He shows that when marijuana arrests go up, so do motor vehicle thefts, and so does larceny. Larceny is really just a fancy word for stealing. Essentially, while police are fingerprinting some poor guy who was busted with an eighth, they can't also keep a jerk from stealing a car. Is this really what we want? And we don't have evidence that arrests have any impact on cannabis use or problems. Cannabis arrests are generally on the rise over the last 25 years, but we have more people who use higher concentrations of THC and generally less expensive plants than ever before. In some cases, we also have a decreasing respect for the law and a lot of concerns about racial profiling and biased enforcement. If we really want to eliminate cannabis problems, this doesn't seem to be the way. As my daughter Maya, who loves rhyme, often says, an arrest is less than best. If you're still with me, let's chat a second about persuasion as well. Note how this discussion focuses on key values rather than splitting hairs about the plant itself. I can argue all day long with prohibitionists about cannabis, but most people agree that we want to get the most out of our law enforcement time. That's why we want to appeal to an overarching value. Instead of asking if cannabis is harmful, we're asking if arrests are worth the money. Suddenly, we're getting people to think about a whole new question. In addition, I did resort to an old ploy from the memory and truth literature when I stole my daughter's expression, an arrest is less than best. Everyone knows that rhyming expressions are easier to remember. Nobody believes it, but they're also considered more accurate and true. So go for the big values and don't hesitate to rhyme. You can talk a lot of people into a lot of things, and we'll be making the best of law enforcement time sooner rather than later. I'm Dr. Mitch Earleywine, and those are today's persuasion points. Do what's in your heart, and let the data be your guide.
The opinions expressed on this Cannabis Radio Network program are those of the guests and hosts, and do not necessarily reflect those of the staff or management of Cannabis Radio Network. Any rebroadcast or retransmission without proper consent of the Cannabis Radio Network is prohibited.